In wildlife photography, there is no second chance. Everyone knows about it. But still we are not prepared. We always think that animal will give us second chance. Yawning is something different. But hunting cannot be repeated, your other activities cannot be repeated. So you have to pre-adjust your camera system, but at the same time you have pre-adjusted, but everything cannot be adjusted in one go. There will be some things which you have to do immediately, instantly at that moment. So what are those? Simple. Landscape versus portrait. If you can hold the camera horizontally, you can rotate it vertically as well. So in some cases where the subject is vertical or there is a requirement to shoot vertically, immediately have that particular thing in mind. Keep that particular thing in mind, that I can hold it horizontally, but if I hold it vertically, still camera is able to take the photograph. Keep that particular thing in mind, number one. Number two, there is a facility in some advanced cameras like your camera, sir, your camera also, of in-camera cropping, which I told you. Okay, so you assign that in-camera cropping to a particular button, any function button, FN1, FN2, FN3, FN4, whatever, and that particular, madam, you come somewhere here, Okay. And in case of a need, you can use that in-camera cropping. How to do it, what to do it, we will, if you want individually, for your individual camera, I will set it and I will demonstrate it. Okay. So what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, that is not within the purview of this basic lecture, but we will cover that if you need it in detail. Then exposure compensation, very important. Just remember the fact that whatever the brand of camera might be, whatever the that segment of camera might be, the plus minus button is always at the fingertip, your index fingertip. That itself means that camera company knows that exposure compensation has a significant advantage and it is required in most of your photography. So that's why that particular button is very handy. All those buttons which are repeatedly or frequently required will be always kept handy by the camera company. They design it that way. Okay. So exposure compensation is very important. Like today we saw these birds and I said that you give positive compensation. But in case of lion, what we did a negative compensation to get that rim light effect. In case of birds, we will not get that rim light effect, because see, there is a difference between light coming and piercing through the subject, and there is a difference between the light which is brighter behind. In case of bird, the light was not piercing the subject and coming to the camera. Remember that difference. Okay, this is also backlit, that is also backlit, but why this here is positive and there is negative? If the light is not piercing the subject and coming to your eyes, if your eyes are not blinking by seeing it, that means in that case you require a positive compensation. But if the light is piercing, then you have two scopes. If you give a positive compensation in that, you will get a washout effect. If you give a negative compensation, you have a chance of getting a good rim light. Then auto versus manual focus. We invariably keep it in autofocus, but in case where there is a clutter or where the subject is too far or where you feel that the camera is not able to hunt or focus properly, that time you switch to manual focus. Nowadays, initially what was happening that you needed to change the button from autofocus to manual focus. Now it is not like that. You keep it to M/A, that is manual override of autofocus. That means you can manually override without changing any button. So it becomes quick. You need not change any switch off or switch on any button. Okay. So remember that. For that manual focus, if you want to focus pick in, that means if you want to zoom in, then you can do it. Those who know it can do it. Those who do not know it, we will discuss. Okay. Then remember one thing, always remind yourself, depth of field, depth of field, what depth of field I need, what depth of field I need, whether I want background to be seen or whether the background is distracting. Keep that in mind and shoot it. Plus manual versus auto ISO. You keep manual ISO, but in case that there is, suppose there is a situation where there is a hunting taking place, and you contemplate that now the hunt is going to take place and I will require a fast shutter speed, and where the subject will move, whether it will go in shade, whether it will go in light, the camera will change its shutter position, shutter speed, but you want that minimum shutter speed of so and so must be maintained. In that case, switch to auto ISO, and when you are putting in your auto ISO in your camera, give the command to the camera that whenever I switch to auto ISO, you keep a shutter speed of at least 1 by 1000 or 1 by 1 by 1600 or 1 by 1250 or 1 by 2000, whatever you are comfortable with. I keep my auto ISO at 1 by 1000. As a rule of thumb, despite lot of experience and me coming frequently to the jungle, I essentially keep my ISO to auto during first half hour and last half hour of the day, unless and until I want a slow shutter speed. Invariably I do it. If someone is saying that no, we are a professional photographer, you cannot be wrong, ये सब बकवास है. All people are equally human.
And AV aperture priority mode. How will you get that in the 1 to 1000 fixed? How can you set it?
See, when you keep it in auto ISO, you are using an aperture priority mode. Say for example, you use an aperture of f5.6. Now, when you are putting it in auto ISO, camera will ask you what shutter, that will be, it will ask you when you are setting the things, camera settings. Not at that particular instant. Okay, suppose you told the camera that you maintain a speed of 1 by 1000 whenever I put it in auto ISO. So whatever aperture you are changing, the reciprocal shutter speed will be maintained to 1 by 1000 or more than that, and ISO will be adjusted accordingly. Okay, so that is a safeguard against it, and that is the biggest advantage of using aperture priority. Okay, then RAW plus JPEG. If you have 14-bit RAW in facility in your camera nowadays, it is there. Use it 14-bit because you are paid for 14-bit, not for 12-bit. Okay, 14-bit is 14 into 14 into 14 colors in 1 pixel. You multiply it. Largest file size, picture control to vivid, all those things you know, whether you keep it standard or ISO to the lowest possible whenever it is possible, and whenever, because the moment you increase ISO, your graininess and quality deteriorates. Okay, focus to AFC and lens to M/A mode. Some cameras they have A/M mode also. Put it to M/A mode where you can manually overwrite. Aperture priority mode as a rule of thumb, but if you think that I am comfortable with manual mode, then you keep the ISO to auto, so that whatever shutter and aperture you are changing, ISO will take care of your exposure. But don't make a heroic attempt of changing all three in wildlife photography, because if you try to do it, you will invariably not succeed 90% of time. Then metering can be done matrix. Now we are going to demonstrate the metering method with the help of a cell phone camera, matrix or spot. Now if you are a beginner, you can keep it matrix, but the best way is to keep it spot, so that we tell the camera that this is the spot from where you have to take the light reading. Don't look at other things. Camera will still look, but 75% weightage will be given to the spot where you are telling the camera to spot. Okay?
As Subha just said, there were 3 lions. In that case, spot metering will work?
No. You are confusing between depth of field and the spot metering. Don't confuse between the spot metering. See, spot metering is just reading the light. Now you want to read light from this line or that line, that is up to you. Invariably, whenever there is a situation, whenever there is a situation where suppose there is a side light, the light is coming from this particular chick is illuminated and this is in shade. Which one? This eye is in shade, this eye is illuminated. Which one you will focus?
Less illuminated.
The less one, shade one.
If you illuminate the shade one, what will happen? What information camera gets? And you are on a spot metering. Camera gets an information that the light is less. It will overexpose. What will happen by overexposing? This particular thing is already overexposed, it will blow out. If you focus on this, camera will get an information that there is too much of light, it will try to underexpose. This will be exposed properly. This is already underexposed, it will be still underexposed. But now we have a knowledge of post-processing that this particular underexposed thing can be retrieved. I cannot retrieve the blown out details.